Welcome back and happy Halloween. It is the most wonderful time of fear, and some businesses are afraid consumers will be spending less this year because of inflation. Jody Jacobs checked out some of this year's top trends.
It's Halloween, a time for the young and the young at heart to dress up and go on a candy crawl. So ahead of All Hallows Eve, I decided to check out which costumes are trending this year. I'm told pop culture icons like Barbie, Wednesday Addams, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles top the list of outfits for this year. Probably not something that I would be comfortable in. Maybe something like this, or this, or perhaps this. There's a costume choice here for everyone.
Well, Halloween is always an eagerly anticipated holiday, especially here in the US. The experts say there's some unique factors this year, like the scary buzz phrases of inflation and economic strain.
We are seeing some people that are like that, and obviously we have options for that. But just like everybody else, inflation hit. Like, we try to work with as best as we can. We have a whole range of costumes, from like some like more packaged costumes that are like can start at like anywhere from like 50 to like 89 to 100 bucks. And then we have high-end costumes, suits of armor and everything like that. Some of those things can be really super extravagant, like film quality costumes. So we've been seeing both move.
In a recent survey published by the Halloween and Costume Association, 2/3 of Americans seem to be haunted by inflation, with around 36% saying they will be spending less this Halloween compared to last year. 42% of respondents say price is definitely impacting their costume choices. And while there continues to be much excitement around this, the most wonderful time of fear, the Halloween industry is worried they might get ghosted by consumers. Jody Jacobs, CGTN, New York.
One peculiar aspect of the Halloween is, depending on how you look at it, is that people get to pay other people to get scared, specifically at buildings turned into haunted attractions. Joining us is Mark Dent Journalist with The Hustle, who's written about the business of all this fun and haunted houses. And, you know, growing up, Halloween was, yes, it was a kid's thing, but it feels like more of an adult thing now. But what attracted you first to this particular story?
Well, I was most interested in kind of learning more about businesses that more or less exist for 4 weeks every year, right? They're only open in October, and really they're only open on weekends during October. So haunted houses, they have all these kind of high costs for rent or for mortgages. They have to pay a lot of actors every year and other employees, including even during the kind of fall season. And yet they only get about, you know, give or take 7 or 8 maybe total evenings in which they can actually make a profit.
Yeah, it's a big industry, and you hear more and more about it on, you know, advertisement and social medias. But in terms of the range of experiences, I would imagine that there's some basic haunted houses, and there are some that just go over the top, right?
Yeah, there's kind of a couple of models, like you were saying there. The most common model, which is about 1/3 to maybe 1/2 of all haunted houses in the U.S., are they're kind of like these pop-up models, where somebody who wants to start a haunted house will just kind of agree to this short-term lease with like a you know, just maybe where there used to be like an abandoned Kmart or some abandoned kind of like store in a suburban strip mall. And they'll use that. They'll be able to put in their haunted house for, you know, 4 to 6 weeks, and then they'll be out of there come mid-November. That model is a little bit cheaper, but the problem is you don't really like establish this kind of permanent location, and you can't build like this really complex haunted house. So kind of the more successful haunted house owners who do require quite a bit more capital, what they'll do is they'll be able to like procure some building, whether they rent it or they buy it for like an entire year. They can really fill it up. There's basically greater risk, but greater reward for those kinds of haunted houses.
And I would imagine, like, if you and I wanted to do this, we couldn't like just rent a house and create a haunted house, because it requires so much capital and planning, and it's like you're planning this way before the holidays begins. Is it limited really to like big companies, and how do they make money from this?
No, it actually is not limited to big companies. What's kind of, I think, interesting and also refreshing about the haunted house industry is that most owners are just like small time kind of businesses that are run by people who are just obsessed with Halloween. Like I talked to somebody in Des Moines, Iowa, who just for his whole life, he wanted to start a haunted house. He gets lucky and you know, he's able to talk a family friend into kind of starting one with him. And then he gets some other investors here and there. In the first 2 years, all he's doing is breaking even to the point where he has to like live inside of his car at times, where he has to sleep inside of his haunted house at times. So it's certainly not easy work, but as long as you're okay with breaking even maybe for a little while, then you do tend to get more business over the years and you can actually make a go out of it. You're not going to make a lot of money, but if you like Halloween and it's what you like doing, then you can do it.
Yeah, I think you obviously have to like Halloween very, very much. A lot, right? So it's a lot of work to have this up for a couple of weeks. When do the haunted houses get up and running? Is it for the whole month of October? And if, assuming it's successful, why not run it for longer?
Yeah, well, some of them open up in September, but yeah, most are generally maybe the last couple weekends of September and then all of October. You know, it's interesting, like back in like the 80s and the 90s, haunted houses were usually open every night of the week, or at least, you know, 5 nights a week during October. Now, like I was saying earlier, it's usually just Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think part of the reason for that is there's just so much more competition. Like there may be more people who are wanting to engage in Halloween activities, but there are also roughly twice as many haunted houses now that are like trying to make a business out of it as there were in like, say, the 1990s. So it's tough. And then after Halloween, you know, I mean, you do have people who are like obsessed with scary stuff all year long. And, you know, horror movies, of course, are popular almost any time of the year. But yeah, it's just not quite the same for haunted houses. So what you see like haunted house operators doing is a lot of them are getting into the escape room business, which is kind of related. You know, that person I mentioned who runs the haunted house in Des Moines, he is looking to start like a speakeasy that will kind of have like a haunted theme to it. So you can come up with creative ways to kind of make money in the off season if you have these buildings all year.
I'm just curious, do these people have like day jobs and this is their side gig, or is this the main gig?
It's a mix. Most usually have somewhat of a side job, or at least a you know, some other way to make income. Like I was mentioning, maybe through escape rooms. Those have really helped people be able to kind of live out their passion all year without having to get a traditional side job. There are some who are like very fortunate. There are some haunted house owners in Kansas City who are famous. They started what's recognized as like the first like true commercial haunted house in the U.S. in the 70s. And in the 80s, they happened to buy a lot of real estate near downtown Kansas City and for their haunted house, and then they just bought a little bit more. And now that area has seen this revival, and they're able to rent out those spaces to like barbecue restaurants and all kinds of these other things. And so they make money that way.
So, okay, so I get the food part. So do they sell tickets, I guess? Like, are you and I paying $10 or $20 to walk through the house, or is it like a theme park situation where you pay one fee and you get access to everything?
Some of them do combine, and they have multiple attractions, maybe like a haunted hayride plus a haunted house. There are, you know, kind of big amusement parks that may offer like a couple of haunted things and then charge you for like a whole entry fee. But, you know, generally when it's just like a standalone haunted house that is run like a business, then yeah, they'll charge you like $20, anywhere from $20 to maybe $45, depending on like how big it is.
Mark, you've given me something to think about. I did not realize what a big business this was. Maybe next year. Mark, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, haunted houses, not the only ones decked out for Halloween, but the real ones come in shapes and sizes of all. A recent survey found the majority of people looking for a home in the U.S. would consider sharing one with the supernatural. Really? Junwei Sum has this.
What's more frightful to U.S. homebuyers, ghosts or interest rates that keep creeping up? According to a survey by real estate platform Zillow, most say they'd rather deal with the ghosts. Nearly 70% of would-be buyers said they'd buy a haunted house if it matched everything else they wanted in a home, a sign of the scarily competitive housing market in the U.S.
Technically, we're seeing right now about 30% less inventory than we saw this time last year. So the inventory numbers are low. And we have plenty of buyers in the market right now.
The average long-term mortgage rate here is at its highest in over 2 decades, nearing 8%.
Go away and never come back!
And if getting the price down means living with a friendly neighborhood ghost, well, more than a third of house hunters say they could be convinced to share. But it's not that easy to find out if Casper, the animated cartoon ghost, might make an appearance at breakfast.
Get my slippers! My feet are cold!
Only 4 U.S. states consider the idea of paranormal activity in a home sale. Though in all states, sellers and agents have to be honest about a home's history if they are asked. Something to note if you're looking for your next spook-free home. Junwei Sum, CGTN.